Welcome to the latest in my monthly series of interviews with marketing leaders about their use of media, their media choices, their media habits, their relationship with their agencies in this rapidly changing digital world. Today I'm joined by Paul Davies, who is the Director of Marketing Communications at Microsoft. Welcome, Paul. You've been at Microsoft for 7 years. Before that, you were at More Than and you were at Direct Line. You're selling a digital brand, a tech brand in this digital world. How does that work for you?
Well, I've had an interesting sort of journey, I guess. So I started out in the industry as more of a classical marketer, a brand marketer, I guess you'd say. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, I thought I need to learn the art of digital. As it happened, Microsoft were looking for someone from a classical background to join a digital business. So it was actually a very happy marriage. And I've really spent the last 7 years learning the craft and the art of digital. And what I've found is it presents new opportunities to marketers, but actually the dynamics and some of the theory and how you apply that is pretty much the same as other media.
So how is digital actually changing the marketing world?
I think it's giving us more opportunities. I think the technical targeting capabilities are very interesting. I think the days of just display banners and a bit of search are long gone. I think there are great opportunities for marketers to embrace, say, retargeting, online video, social media. So the catch-all of digital is much more embracing than certainly it used to be a few years ago.
You've done some interesting things with film and film companies.
We've done a lot of work in the digital space. Probably the campaign that we're very renowned for in the UK is a campaign called Brand and Generator for Internet Explorer, where we curated an online filmic serial. It had 4 episodes. We commissioned Edgar Wright, who directed Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and most recently The World's End, to write this. He wrote episode 1. It was a graphic novel animation that existed online. We commissioned an artist who does a lot of work with Marvel and with Lucasfilm. So he's a well-known cult comic writer to draw it. Put it online, and at the end of episode 1 we said, do you want to make a film with Edgar Wright? Join in, tell him what you want to happen next. And we did that iteratively for 4 episodes. It was a huge success. Certainly one of the most creative digital projects I've been involved in. I'm very proud of it.
And what impact did it have? I mean, why was this a success? What did you do for your brand?
So for the brand, the challenge that we had is the target audience who we were seeking had fallen out of love with Internet Explorer. They'd gone to Google Chrome because that was the new bright shiny thing. This happens a lot in the tech world. People just want something new. And I think Internet Explorer had an aura of perhaps being the tired uncle, and we wanted to change that and make it much more contemporary and more cutting edge, because it had a lot of very interesting features that to a more tech audience and developers they find really interesting, which is why an animated project lent itself really nicely to this because of the streaming capabilities of the browser.
And did you only use that online, or did you take it into other media as well?
It's a really interesting question. We did take it into other media. So we were kind of in that very interesting space where you take an online project into the offline world, and normally things work the other way around. So it was a fascinating campaign in that respect. So we did a couple of things. We took out-of-home inventory space where we knew that our cutting-edge audience would be, particularly around Shoreditch. We placed a very large poster placement above the World's End pub in London, which fans of Edgar Wright knew that his next film was called The World's End. Of course, they tweeted about it, took pictures, so that was really good for us as well. And then we took it into TV. And this is what I think is really interesting. We took the whole of a commercial break. It was the first break during the UK premiere of a film that Edgar was exec producer of. So it was a Channel 4 premiere of Attack the Block. We took the entire first break and we showed highlights of what had been created online, this filmic animation, which I thought was really, really innovative, and because we knew his audience would be watching. And surprise, surprise, it gave us a huge spike in traffic as a result.
So what does all this mean for your budgets? How are they changing, moving money from the traditional media perhaps to the new media?
We review our media mix on an ongoing basis. We have a portfolio of brands and we have a number of different audiences across in the consumer space but also in the commercial space. And so across that brand portfolio, each has a different challenge, each has a different media mix. So as a client advertiser, we're present across TV, cinema, radio, out of home, digital, events, you name it, we pretty much have a presence depending on the job to be done for the brand. Increasingly what I'm seeing though is we are much more considered about where our presence is to map against the customer journey. And I think years ago the traditional way of thinking would be to invest in above the line to drive awareness and consideration, invest into retail, and the customer journey was actually pretty linear. What we're seeing now is the customer journey is much more complex, and this is due to the proliferation of digital. And what we're seeing is consumers might go in store to try it, they might then go online to read a review, they might go back in store, go back online to read something else. So it's much less linear, and what we're finding is we're planning our mix to make sure we have a presence across that customer journey. Because of course if we don't do that middle bit where we can convert the leads that we've created into sales, essentially what we're doing is we're creating the market for someone else. So otherwise we're spending a huge amount on awareness and consideration, and then if someone else is better at converting, they'll win the sale at the end of the day. And
how do you involve your agencies in this? You've obviously got a creative agency, media agency, some other agencies, and it is all getting a bit more complicated.
It can. I think we are fairly unique in our approach to this. I have a view that the days of briefing a creative agency for a 30-second TV spot to make them famous are long gone. That's certainly the way it used to work, create a TV spot and build the rest of the campaign around that. We are much more discipline agnostic now, and we will brief our agencies together as a collective, and we'll typically look for a big idea. That's now the starting point, to find a big idea, and that can come from any discipline. So it could come from PR, it could come from social, it could come from advertising, it could come from media. Once we've got a big idea that's grounded in customer insight, that's then the point at which we can decide which disciplines we then want to apply to that particular project. So it's a much more dynamic way of working, but with it certainly comes some challenges around agency remuneration, etc.
Exactly. And things like trading desks and so on, I mean that people are obviously wanting more money on the media owners, and everybody is actually looking at budgets much harder. How does that work for you?
Trading desks, certainly I think they have a role. I think in terms of driving frequency of message and a degree of targeting, I think they're great. However, certainly what we're finding is that we're spending more in other digital sources. So for example, online video, I think is a huge growth area. Retargeting ads is critically important for us, particularly around the connected customer journey from being aware of a product, reading a review or perhaps browsing and then going off and doing something else online. I think we can all relate to that experience, and certainly retargeting technology, particularly for brands that have an element of online retail about them, I think is really important.
And do you think media owners are actually selling that well? If you had a message to the media to make your life easier or better, what would it be?
I think it goes both ways. I think certainly there's a message to the media which is around clients are looking for innovation. Clients are like ourselves, are constantly looking for what's the next thing. How can we steal a first mover advantage against our competitors? But equally, I kind of think there's a message back to clients as well, and I think it takes brave clients to push agencies a little bit harder and to break the mould of what they've done before and constantly strive for excellence in where they want to go next with their brand.
Microsoft obviously is a brand that's been around a long time. You mentioned that actually sometimes it can be seen as a bit tired. How do you keep all those things fresh?
In the industry that we're in, which is tech, we're very fortunate. There is, it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. I work in an industry where the competitors that I sort of go to sleep at night worrying about are the likes of Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google. It kind of doesn't really get much bigger than that. It's daunting, but what does work in our favour is the tech world moves so very quickly that there's constant a wave of development and research. There's new products, new devices, new online services that we're producing all the time. So it's a very dynamic industry to work in.
You are, of course, a global brand, and how far do you work globally and locally? You had this Super Bowl ad, which had technology, a very emotional ad. Technology brings empowerment. How does that work over here?
It's a really interesting question. For that particular ad, it was a US-only ad, but of course, what we're all finding now, those of us that work on global brands, you create an ad in one country. The minute it goes on YouTube, it's global straight away. So we are wrestling with that global-local dynamic, like many brands. I think the rise in digital media has made that more complicated, certainly than it used to be. But our approach is a blend of the two, actually. So some of the campaigns that we create are created globally, and we drop them into markets around the world. Other campaigns are created locally. And it's really a blend of the two. Again, it depends on the particular brand, the job we need to do, and also whether the customer insight is a local one or whether it's a global insight.
Do you ever see a commercial in another country that you'd really like to use over here?
Yeah, I do. There's one great example. There's a great Windows ad that originated in China, I believe. It's on YouTube. It's a great example of creativity. The message of Windows is about work and play. So the devices are great for business. So if you want to do a PowerPoint presentation or Excel, PCs are great at that. But equally, if you want to consume media, it's fantastic for that as well. So it kind of fits both roles. And there's this fantastic ad with two piano prodigies banging out a very fast piece of music on the piano. So essentially that's the work element, and then as the camera pans out, what you see, what's revealed, is that behind their backs they've got strapped to their belts table tennis bats, and they're playing a game of table tennis behind them whilst they're playing the piano. It's brilliant, so it's well worth looking up. It's on YouTube.
Paul Davies, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.